Hi, everyone. My name is Maya Fortune. I'm part of the Tribeca New Music team, and I'm so excited to meet with the Unheard-of Ensemble in lieu of their upcoming performance on March 2nd at 7:30 in the Domena Center at Benziken Hall. Thank you so much for being here. If you could both introduce yourselves and a little bit about what Unheard of is.
I'm Iva. I'm the cellist, and for this concert, also the singer. Ford.
I'm Ford. I'm the clarinetist for Unheard-of. Yeah, we're really excited to be performing and collaborating with Tribeca New Music on this premiere.
That's awesome. Can you tell me a little bit about how you created Unheard of? I know that it started from a very small group to, a national collective community. So how did that happen?
At first, Daniel Anastasio, our pianist, and I started around 2014. It was just us wanting to do a bunch of commissions from our friends at Stony Brook. And I just grew from there. And we've had a lot of other Stony Brookers join our group. Our friend Mateus, our violinist, it was the next one to join. And then we had Iva join a couple of years back. And it's been really great to see the group grow, not just us growing into our chamber ensemble, our Messiaen quartet, but to see us work with hundreds of composers, get to experience this new work, and get to meet people from all over, and get to bring their music back to New York, and get to share our music all over the country at universities, random venues, canals, Texas overpasses. We played everywhere, and it's going to be nice to play at the Domena Center, which is probably one of our more climate-controlled venues for the year.
I can confirm.
Yeah.
I appreciate the climate control.
It's nice when there's maybe some AC or heating or anything that shelters you from the weather.
To be fair, New York, inside's not a guarantee of any of those these days.
Right about that.
And there's a thrill to dancing with the weather.
Yeah.
Sure. A thrill. That's not the right word. Luckily, the Domena Center doesn't get shut down, so the concert will be happening.
Yeah, it will be happening. Has there been a concert that's been shut down before?
This past year, we did our Cultural Ecology series, which is our series collaborating with the Gowanus Dredgers, of which I'm a member now. And we present these concerts on the Gowanus Canal, this super fun site that's being remediated by the EPA. And we planned our concert somehow in the middle of a hurricane. And so we had to figure out, the hurricane started about a day after our collaborators for Helix, Martha and Anna, flew in. And we were like, well, they have flown in from Mexico. We have no other option but to have this concert happen somewhere, because we're not letting them leave empty-handed. So Daniel and I called a bunch of different Gowanus locations. We stopped into a bunch of breweries in the area, and I knew Wild East, and the owners of Wild East are always down for tons of concerts, tons of events, and lots of community collaboration too. They've worked with the local breweries and other people to make Gowanus themed beers. It's a really cool space. And so they hosted us in their barrel room. So yeah.
1 day's notice.
We somehow made it happen. Yeah.
Really grateful for that.
They came through. They really did.
That's so cool. I wanted to ask about that concert because I also live in Gowanus, and I just thought it was so exciting to see that collaboration, especially in a space that is being created again from something into something more hospitable, maybe. And I was just wondering, how do your collaborations in the community itself move your mission forward about accessibility to music? And why did you think it was important to pair with that neighborhood or that cultural ecology project in general?
I had the chance of just starting to work with the Dredgers way back in 2020. Mateus and I were actually walking around the neighborhood trying to get footage of the Gowanus, and we didn't know enough about the community. So we contacted Gowanus Canal Conservancy, another fantastic group that is really putting a lot of, they had like their own lowlands nursery and a bunch of different types of like building into the community and advocating for growth, like natural growth. Gowanus, the Gowanus Dredgers Canoe Club is more focused on the water advocacy, trying to get people on the water because, you get people on the water, you get them experiencing how cool a canal is. They're going to want to advocate for making this space a place for everyone. And they also host a ton of great arts events anyways. They have the Creekers Jamboree by the Boathouse, which hosts a ton of great guest artists, as well as a ton of locals who get to just meet together and jam. This is sort of an extension of all the great work that they've already been doing. Me and my friend Cellist Lecomte, we were like, okay, well, we've been doing some of these one-off concerts to promote the Spire Ecologies piece that we've been collaborating on. Why not go bigger? Why not make it like a summer-long series, bringing in a bunch of new commissions, a lot of which are written about the canal or written about New York stories or written about people who are, New Yorkers living here, or just about, issues that really matter to us. And we've been lucky that our first season, aside from the one hurricane, was great. And it's cool. A lot of people who've come from Queens, come from Manhattan, who say, oh yeah, I heard Gowanus. It's a gross, disgusting place. Why go there? It changes their mind. They go, wow, this is something that I can really come back to, support. This is a fun recreational activity. And I know you think recreational activity doesn't sound like that big of a leap forward, but going from this place is toxic, this place is dangerous, to, if I come back here, I can make this a part of my life. That shapes the way this community can grow. And it's amazing to see what the Dredgers are doing. We're only one tiny, tiny little piece of that with our 4 concerts, but, this next season is going to be really special too, with the different ways we're planning on collaborating. But yeah, that's just a little bit. I could go on for a couple hours if you want.
But just to add on to that, it's a great community audience experience because people can opt into actually canoeing during the concert. So we have people kind of like floating around us, and they can see the concert from whatever angle they choose, or go farther away, or come closer to the music. While there's also audience sitting on the shore, drinking a beer, just having fun. So it's a very kind of relaxed, casual event. So that's been really fun to put on.
That's amazing too, because I feel that sometimes there can be a disconnect between contemporary modern music and the audience, especially in a more traditional classical setting. So they're becoming part of the performance as well by interacting with it, and also feeling comfortable enough to be themselves in that moment, and having a beer. So I think that also is just so inspiring, because more traditional classical music media portrays contemporary is much more strict in a way. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's exactly kind of our point with putting on some of these concerts. Yeah, we do play in traditional venues, obviously, and we do play in classical new music festivals, but it's really nice to put our work into completely different contexts, because as Ford was alluding to, we can put on a concert literally anywhere. We played under a bridge in Texas. We might have lost some gaff tape to the canal there, but besides that, it all went well. And it just moving the audience to a different context is very powerful. And especially if it has an ecological goal, like we're trying to bring attention to Gowanus in that area in New York. So it's kind of a more relaxing atmosphere when you remove the seriousness of the venue sometimes.
So yeah, I guess Benzigen Hall is going to be a little less exciting.
But you'll be excited.
It was
I wouldn't
the music.
I wouldn't say less exciting. We're going to be doing some really cool multimedia stuff as well, not just a traditional concert. We have Helix has this really awesome video by Martha Maya, which is incredible. And Allison Tanenhaus has worked with Unheard-of and Doug Bielmeier on this really cool piece for Corporate Responsibility Pledge. Those visuals are awesome as well. I mean, Allison also, like, I love the visuals so much that like a year later, I was like, hey, do you want to collaborate on something else? Like, I really think her work is super cool, super glitchy. It's really out there. And for David's piece as well, we travel with some of our own lighting setup, and we like to really curate the space, even if it's like a traditional concert venue. And I just spent even more money on more lights that are new. So it's going to be great. Come out and see the new lights that we bought. They're huge. They're really cool. These like 2-foot, like RGB controllable lights. Come see how we're going to do it next. It's going to be different than anything we've ever done.
That's exciting. So what are you performing of David Crowell's, and what's important about the piece to you?
We're premiering a piece called Memories of the Imagined that he wrote for us. And what's really nice about the piece is that he really wrote it specifically for us, for musicians in mind. For example, he has a lot of experience writing for my voice and my cello voice. So he really dove into that with this piece. And I think it's maybe one of our first commissioned works that actually uses my voice, my singing voice. And he's worked on a lot of details with the rest of the ensemble as well, and their playing styles. And he also used recordings that we made to create the electronics. So our sounds are kind of incorporated throughout the whole piece, the electronic side and the live side.
Yeah, that's super cool. So were you in process with him a lot? I assume you definitely were, because it was so collaborative.
I think initially we all kind of recorded for him. And then he went off to write the piece for a couple months. And then in the fall, we started the process of rehearsing the piece. And recently we actually did a little getaway to Connecticut, and we did like a very intense workshop through the piece together. So over the months we've met and workshopped, like we made changes in the piece. If someone thought something would be easier this way, or if it sounds better that way, we would kind of work together to find the right sound ultimately.
That's super cool. And as a cellist and a clarinetist, I assume you approach the piece differently?
I don't know necessarily about winds versus strings, but rhythmically, it's been interesting for different parts of our ensemble. Like, I'd say Iva and Mateus have more experience with like improv and jazz, and Daniel and I are coming from the classical and contemporary realm. And so it's been interesting to see. David is such a excellent jazz musician and like great jazz saxophonist and guitarist as well. And he brought into this piece a ton of really like complicated feels, which for a lot of contemporary classical music, you see what's on the page, you read what's on the page, you're doing the best you can to execute, and you try to get as close to the score as possible. And while David has a lot of that on the score, there's so much more that's like in there, a richness of the way that like these rhythms are felt. And it's been fun for me and Daniel, at least, to like come in and try to find that right feel and get exactly the groove that's happening. And once it's locked in with the electronics, and then you have this added element of the way that it's like mixed to be performed live, and you start to get all of these different complex layers that like pop out of it and make it a really fun performance experience as like as one whole. It doesn't exist without all of these elements that are like stacked up from each of us. And then, you know, through the electronics and mixing and performing, you get this really cool, complete product that is impossible without each of our individual skill sets.
And on top of getting the right seal, which, you know, is something that I also work towards. It's not just natural and easy for me either. It also, another aspect of the piece is us getting the right articulation for our separate instruments. You know, we are all trained with a classical kind of articulation, and kind of had to push that aside and really dig in and lean in. And for example, the technique I'm using is like, I'm doing a lot of like jazz bass, double finger pitsing. Like, we don't do that in the classical world. So that has a completely different sound. And it was the right sound for this piece.
Super cool. And are you playing cello and singing at the same time? Because for me, I'm a violinist. It's totally impossible for me to do that. So if you are, that's really impressive.
I am. It's something I do a lot, but it's hard. It's always hard. But it's really helpful to have the whole group back me up. But yeah, it's for me, the biggest challenge of the piece is managing my two halves of my brain, and sometimes with opposing rhythms too.
Yeah.
It's kind of a fun challenge I like to bite into, so I welcome it.
I'm super excited to see, especially because Ford, you probably know a lot more about breathing, whereas when I'm playing violin, I'm not thinking about that at all, when to take a breath, when to do that. And so then when you add singing to cello, I'm sure that the experience is very similar.
For sure. I have breath marks written in, and that's like me learning to sing and play. I did have to go through kind of the learning curve of realizing, oh, I'm breathing too late here, you know. So I realized that's something that wind players think about a lot, and it's something I had to learn to do.
Amazing. So one of my last questions is a very simple but annoying one. What are you two listening to these days, and why? Like, what's on your playlist?
On the topic of singing and playing, I've been listening to a lot of Iva Casian-Lakoš this week. She's a Czech singing violinist. She's really just wild, and her vocal abilities are insane. And I really like how she sources from Slavic and Balkan music, and she's just a great inspiration for me. So I like to check in and listen to some of her albums sometimes.
For me, like, I've got a really lame answer, but that's because a lot of the listening I've been having to do is for work. I've been having such a weird week. I listened to this sound art by Francisco López, who does a bunch of like really cool like immersive field recording stuff because of my class that I teach, and also listening to Schumann because I got to get my edits in for this video project that I've just been sitting on. And then my next to do is to listen to Chris Stark's Fire Ecology's piece, because we need to get the album edits out for that so we can release it next year. But yeah,
on my list also this week. So
I know it's so all like practical and not like super fun answers, but you know, it's been one of those weeks.
I feel that. That's great. Well, it was so nice to talk to both of you. Thank you so much for having this little interview with me. And we're very excited to see you on March 2nd at the Domena Center at 7:30. It's going to be a great show. Is there anything else you want to add?
Like, I'm just excited for the show. Come see us.
And if you're a composer or you want to get in touch with us, follow us on, feel free to reach out. If you're seeing anything online that you have questions about, always happy to answer our DMs or answer an email. So, get in touch and come see us.